Jan here from PractiTest hosting this webinar. We have our very distinguished guest, Jan-Jaap. I will skip the last name. I chickened out at the last second.
That's okay, Mayan.
We'll be talking about characteristics of a modern testing process, quite relevant for everybody, obviously, if you've decided to join us. So just a quick introduction. Jan-Jaap is a principal consultant at Squarist, if I said that as quick properly as well, which is a consultancy company that specializes in process management and testing. Within his capacities there, Jan-Jaap is responsible for coaching, knowledge management, and product development. He is also a well-known author of several articles and books in the Netherlands, and is a regular keynote speaker on international conferences and here as well. We are very fortunate to have him with us today. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayan.
Okay. We will have, I'll just mention some technicalities. I will be monitoring the Q&A so as not to ruin your flow of thought. People, if you have questions, put them in there, and in about the end of his presentation, we'll have time to answer questions. So I think you can start sharing your own screen, and if not, I'll stop sharing mine, and then I think you can share your own. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Is my screen shared?
Yes, we can see your screen. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
All
Okay.
right.
Welcome everybody. Very happy to do this webinar for PractiTest, and we're going to talk about characteristics of a modern test process. And maybe you're asking yourself, what will the content be? Well, the agenda, we will be looking for gold. We will be gold seekers. We will talk about yoga at work. We will talk about Gollum of Lord of the Rings. We will talk about the funeral of Microsoft Word, and of course we will be talking about flying goldfish, because I'm always talking about flying goldfish. If you expect something else, then maybe you're in the wrong webinar. This will be the subjects, and I will promise you it will actually be the subjects. But seriously, our world is changing, and it's changing fast. It's already 20 years underway, but still a lot of people haven't reached that change. And most of the testing methods we use today, and most of the certification schemes, most of the books we read, were initiated when the world looked a bit like this. Process very important. We were talking about quality assurance, about stages in a project. Of course, the waterfall, talking about specifications. Some people still say we can't test without specifications. Well, I can test anything without specifications or not. It was very method-based, and we were working with a lot of documentation, like test plans. And then something happened, and well, I guess everybody knows this picture, the Agile Manifesto, and after that, a lot of things were changed. And if we look at the world today, then it would be something like this: a lot of flexibility. We are talking about anonymous teams, Scrum teams. Craftsmanship is very important. We're talking about value-based development or business value. Customer satisfaction should be maybe in the center of this all. We're doing a lot of outsourcing, and the level of pragmatism is much higher than in the years before. If we look at that a little bit more closely, then we see that things used to be very planned. We used to make very thick plans, but also very detailed plans. In week number this, we're going to do this, then we're going to deliver that product, etc. Today, our environment is asking us to be flexible. Yes, today we think we will deliver in a month, something like this, but that could change. So we have to be flexible in our approach as well. We used to be very method focused. There were some there still are some methods in testing, and some organizations, they say they follow the method no matter what. But most organizations say, okay, a method can be helpful and it can help us to come up with some ideas how to do it, but craftsmanship is far more important. So we're more looking for people who are good in testing than that we're looking for a good test method. It used to be a very high process focus. Maybe things in Israel are a bit different. I've been to Israel a couple of times, but when it comes to IT and testing, I don't think there's much difference between the Netherlands and Israel. And in the Netherlands, the ISO standards used to be very popular. Organizations following ISO standards, there's an ISO standard for testing. And I have made all kinds of process models for testing. But today we say these processes, not that important. It's all about the goal of our client, the goal of the organization we're working for, and the team goal. It's all very goal oriented. We used to think that testing should always be thoroughly. And if for 20 years I would have said, hey, let's do some testing in production, I could actually leave the building because no, we're not going to put things into production without testing it thoroughly. Now we're saying fast, that it should also be very fast. Of course, it depends per system. A couple of years ago, I was in a hospital, lying in this big scanner. I hope it wasn't testing in production. Actually, I hope it was tested beforehand thoroughly. But on the other hand, I've also worked on some websites, some web shops or things like that. And we need to go into production really fast. So yes, we did testing in production. Yes, we didn't test everything. We also took our chances. We did some A/B testing. Look how things were going into production. So fast is also very important. And we used to follow standards, ISO standards, things like that. But today we say, no, it should be very pragmatic. The team should decide how we do testing, and they should not be limited by any standards. For most organizations, of course, there are exceptions here. So this classical way of testing, and most testers still read books and do certification classes around it, but this more classical way of testing, which is characterized by phases, by making documentation, by ending activities, starting new ones, etc. This way of testing is not always applicable anymore. For some organizations, it will be. So yes, we have to learn about it. A lot of organizations can't use things like this. And then I often get the question, okay, if you know so much about testing, tell me, how does a modern test process look like? Draw it for me, write a book about it. Well, there is not one test method which is always applicable for all organizations, but there are some characteristics you see in most organizations. So I think we should study these characteristics and, depending on our situation, apply them in a different way. These characteristics, in our opinion, are that we should be goal-oriented, that we should be flexible, and that we should be fast. And there is something in the middle, which I will tell you later. If you look at characteristic number one, is goal orientation. Sometimes I meet some testers and I talk with them about testing and how they are doing testing and what they're doing. And then I ask them why they're doing it. And they say, yeah, because it needs to be tested. Yes, but why does it need to be tested? Well, it needs to be full free into production, error free into production. Is that so? What is your added value? It's not a question. And sometimes people don't know. They just do testing because they do testing, but they forget the why question. And I think when you're doing anything at all, it all starts with why. This is a brilliant book by Simon Sinek, and I advise everybody to read it. I will not come with 10 books, but only 2 actually. But yes, it starts with why, and we have to ask ourselves, why are we testing? And what is the added value for testing for this particular organization, for this particular context? And based on that, we can come with the how, and then at the last, the what. If we look at testing on a very high level, we see that there are 3 goals for testing. The first one is confirmation-based, which is actually checking. You're checking whether a system meets a set of regulations or requirements or another set of documented things, the documented requirements that the application should meet. And actually, this is the most easy way for to test the system. You have your requirements you should meet, and you just do some explicit testing, and then you see if it's not true or false, and it's pass or fail. And when everything's passed, you go into production. Yay, everybody happy. Is that so? Is everybody happy with checking? By the way, there is still a lot of checking around in this world. I've done a lot of work for the Dutch government, and they don't go into production before they've checked that certain systems meet certain privacy requirements, security requirements, of course, functional requirements, and that is really checking. And so it still happens, and it has value. But is that the value the organization is looking for? The other goal of testing could be risk-based. Yes, we want to go into production. We want to go as fast as possible, but we want to know which risks we have, and maybe we want to cover some of these risks. So product risk assessment is always the most important, well, the first very important activity to do when you're doing risk-based testing. You could say the result stuff. This is happening as well in a lot of organizations. Well, it's gaining more ground these days. Value-based testing. I'm in an organization right now, in a project right now, and they're spending about 1.2, 1.3 million euros. I don't know how things are going into the organization where you are working, but in my organization, 1.2 million euros is a lot of money. So they want to have benefits which are higher than 1.2 million. And as a tester, we know we have a lot of information. We think critically about things. We look at things in a different way. So maybe we should also let the question cross our mind whether the benefits of this system will be harvested or not. So will the value that the organization is aiming at be reached? Will there be goals in this future application which makes it right to invest 1.2 million? And then testing becomes something really different than checking or risk-based testing. Then we also have to look at designs. We also have to look at the product vision. We also have to look at the development of the system is going to the right direction. Will it have the value the organization is looking for? And yes, we're testers, absolutely. But maybe we also become goal diggers then, because we have to look at the goals that the system is delivering to the organization, the value that the system is delivering to the organization. And maybe we also, in that case, have to do some work in the planning, in prioritization, in backlog management, things like that. Some people say, no, testing is making and executing test cases. That can have value, but it is all thinking. Maybe to deliver the value to the organization, we have to expand our work. And yes, checking and risk-based testing is still part of testing, but maybe we should incorporate value-based testing within our work, and then we become gold diggers. I promised you we would talk about gold diggers, didn't I? Yeah. Let's look at characteristic number 2, flexibility. The short way to explain flexibility is that there's not one way to do proper testing. There are different ways, depending on your context, depending on your situation, you use different ways of testing. If you look at testing in a different way, not from a goal, but more from a methods perspective, we see there are two main streams in testing. There's scripted testing, and well, most of you will probably know ISTQB. ISTQB, the certification scheme of ISTQB, is very focused on scripted testing. You make scripts up front, you make these scripts based on other information, and you execute scripts, which sounds a bit like checking. You also get information which you can use in value-based testing, so it's not one-on-one. But scripted testing can have value and can be useful in certain situations. But we also have the school of exploratory testing. In exploratory testing, we don't do so much preparation. You can do some preparation, but sometimes even no preparation. And you build your test design on the spot. You decide on the spot which test cases you're going to do next. You have to document it because you have to show afterwards what you've been tested and what you haven't been testing, especially when you're doing risk-based testing. But you have much more freedom and you build your structure along the way. One thing, exploratory testing is not unstructured testing. It's very structured testing, but with less preparation and a lot more freedom. It's not scripted testing or exploratory testing. Some people are saying that, but there are intermediate forms of testing which you can apply depending on the situation. So there's a continuum between scripted testing and exploratory testing. And I've been discussing with some of my colleagues, and we came up with six different ways of testing. There are much more, but we think that with these 6, you can do most of the testing you want to do. But when we were studying for this, when we were reading books and surfing the internet, we found much more ways of testing, scenario-based testing. Well, can't remember. We came up with 27 different ways of testing, but we think these 6 will work for you. On the left-hand side, we have the detailed scripting. So making scripts so detailed that someone else than the person who made the scripts can execute scripts. So really go to this screen, fill in this field, this and this, go to that field, press enter, see that on that screen or on the printer, you see the this outcome, check it, is it okay or not? So really detailed. It can be useful, especially when you're testing systems with very detailed calculations. For instance, a mortgage system. I hope it is tested with good scripts. But sometimes you don't have to make these really detailed scripts. Global scripts will do. So then they're saying this case tested something like a person above the age of 65 with a passport, can he go in this or this direction, yes or no? So not as detailed, but more the functional test cases as we know them. Session-based testing is, in our opinion, a little bit in between scripted testing and exploratory testing. You divide all the test work into different sessions with different goals, with different parts of the system. So every session has a scope, has a goal, and if you have more time for testing, you do more sessions and you cover more of the system and you can go deeper. But within the sessions, you have pretty much freedom to decide what to test and what not. maybe you get some test points or test ideas you should test, but you decide on the priority yourself. So within the sessions you have freedom, but the sessions are made up front. Bug hunts. I'm a real big fan of bug hunts. I love it. Bug hunts are joint sessions, for instance, with users or functional managers of applications, functional application managers, things like that. And you have joint test sessions. So everybody's in the room and you are testing this part, you're testing this part. And I combine session-based testing and bug hunts very often. So I make some documentation up front. You're doing this part of the system. You will be testing this process. You will be doing this and testing this process. And we're going to test all together at the same time in the same room. It's a lot of fun. And you can reach goals which you cannot reach with detailed scripting and people testing at their own desk. But you have to manage it well. There are some risks when you're doing bug hunts, and you have to mitigate these risks. Test tours, based on a brilliant book by, I have the book over here. Can't see it that fast. Can't remember the author right away. Look for it, test tours. And a test tour looks a bit like a session-based testing, but the goal is not as clear as session-based testing. You're going to look for certain defects. For instance, does the process match the application? Can I execute the process with the application? Does the application look attractive? Maybe you should test parts where a lot of defects were found, so the bad parts. Maybe do some tours based on the burglar idea. Can I reach some data which I should not be able to read? So test tours, even more freedom, but you only give a fake goal to, so not very detailed goal to the tester, and then wish him or her success. Freestyle exploratory testing, I love it. It's really easy. You give someone a system, you say, well, the system should do this and this and this. You got an hour or a week or a month to test it, and go ahead. And at the end of this hour, week, or month, you have to explain what you have tested, why you've tested it, what the outcome was, and what you haven't tested. So freestyle exploratory testing is not a playground without any rules. No, you have to test it in a very structured way, but the preparation is very low. And this really works good with new employees. Suppose you're making an app. The first day is the most valuable day for testing. The first day, first working day of this new employee, because it will be the first time he or she will see the app. So then ask him or her to do a freestyle exploratory testing. Yeah, the app is for trading cars, for instance, or the app is a new social media platform for within the company. And the goals are this and this and this. Go test for a day. And they will find defects that you, as a professional tester, will not find because you know the application already very good. Yes, the yoga at work. Why do we need to do yoga at work? Well, you need to be flexible. There are here 6 different ways of testing. And suppose you're doing detailed scripting and you've never heard of bug hunts, but in your situation, bug hunts would have been much better than detailed scripting. In that case, you're not delivering the best value you can deliver as a tester. So in my opinion, you should know all these different ways of testing and maybe even more or different other ways of testing. And depending on the situation, you're also capable to decide what you're going to test and what not. So yes, you should be very flexible. You should change your way of testing depending on the situation. And that will mean that you will be very flexible like this lady, and don't try this at home, please, but be flexible. Characteristics number 3, fast. To become faster, we definitely need automation. You cannot do without automation. And I've seen the automation solutions by PractiTest. They look really good to me. They look great. But there are some things we should consider when you do test automation. And different ways of documentation can also help you with becoming faster. By the way, session-based testing till freestyle exploratory testing also takes less time, and in the same time you will find more bugs. This is shown in different scientific researches. So if you want to do some fast testing, also consider session-based testing, bug hunts, test tours, or freestyle exploratory testing. But let's dive deeper into automation and documentation. Automation is checking. Automation is, well, this is for 90% true. There are some ways of test automation which are not checking in themselves, but they're very difficult and very fault prone. Most of the test automation we do today is that we record and playback or program test cases. But these test cases have already been executed. But at least that's a good practice. So you know upfront what you're gonna put into the system, and you know upfront what you're getting out of the system. That means the test automation is checking. If you really want to do risk-based testing or value-based testing, then you should do more than test automation. But for the checking, please use test automation. Of course, we got the question, what can we automate? Sometimes people say to me, automate 100% of the things you can test. Well, the amount of tests I can do is infinite. So that's impossible. I can always come up with new test cases, new combinations, use your creativity, and you can always come up with new test cases. So theoretically, you cannot automate 100%. Okay, let's let's only automate the valuable test. Let's make a test set, and then all the tests you want to do, let's automate them. Okay. We don't have infinite amount of time, so let's only automate the valuable test. Well, there are some tests you're only gonna do once. Like I told you, I've been in a agile team, we were making a platform to trade cars, and there were some parts of the system, especially where we had to explain who we are and how the app is working, and some legal stuff that will not be changed in the future, most probably. And if it will be changed, we will test it manually because we will only test it once. So there are test cases you're only gonna do once. And if it's okay, you don't repeat them. Don't automate them, please. It will take more time. Some things are pretty impossible to automate. It's so complex. Systems can be so complex, especially when we look at an end-to-end situations where we need stops and drivers or virtual systems to do testing. Then it takes so much time to make the test environment and to make sure it works. And it's pretty impossible to do automation here, because do it manually, it takes 2 minutes and you're ready. Some tests are possible to automate, but you don't want them to automate because the test cases in itself are too complex. Systems who behave different in different situations, and these situations cannot always be controlled. So these are the tests you want to automate. So these are the tests you want to automate. And if you automate it less, then you have work to do. Yes, we need to automate, but be aware that not everything can be automated or is something you want to automate. Test automation and costs. we also have to look at the financial side of test automation. Suppose you're not going to automate anything. Then you only do manual testing. Then making and executing and analyzing test cases takes a lot of time. So we spend a lot of money here. And yes, regression tests manually also takes a lot of time. And we have to analyze the outcome. We also, the essence of system development is that we change systems. So we have to change our test sets. And based on that, we also have to do some extra manual work to make sure that test cases are up to date, which leaves us very little time and possibilities because we don't have tools in this case to do some non-functional testing. I have tried to do performance testing without tools, and I will never try it again. Let's look at how costs will look when we're doing automated testing. The first test case takes an awful lot of time and money. We have to select the tool. Of course, PractiTest will be our first choice, but still we want to know for sure if they're still better than competitors. We have to learn the tool. We have to come up with a test case. It takes a lot of time. Adding extra test cases by the time we have some test cases in the tool takes less time. So we can automate, we can execute a lot of test cases. Wow, how cool is that? Oh yeah, we have to analyze the outcome. Don't forget that still has to be done with our brains. Of course, the tools can help. There's still work that needs to be done by humans. And the regression test, whoa, here it gets really good. We're going to save a lot of money here. Yeah, because we can do the regression test daily, weekly, maybe hourly even. You have to build it in a certain way to do that, but that goes too deep for now. Oh yeah, we have to analyze the outcome also. Yeah, that's true. The making sure the test cases are up to date takes more time when you have automated it. So we have to think what has changed, which test cases should be changed, and we have to change it in the tool, which takes more time. But okay. So we saved some time and money, didn't we? Well, we have some extra possibilities now because we use tools. Security testing, performance testing, load testing. We have all these new possibilities now. Now we have tools, so we use these possibilities. And at the end of the day, it looks a bit like we spend as much time and money as we did when we were testing manually. Does that mean that automation doesn't have any value? Automation has a lot of value. We can test more. We can test more often, maybe even daily. We can test faster, more test cases. We can test different things. And when I say things like this, I would expect my manager to look like this. Oh, wow, Jan-Jaap, you did a great job. But actually, he doesn't look like this. He asked me a question, and the question is, was it cheaper? And I ask him, and I answer him, well, it wasn't cheaper, but we tested more often, we tested faster, we tested different things. But it didn't really become cheaper, but it became better. And then he often looks like this. What? Not cheaper? Yeah, I think that automation makes testing better, not cheaper. And we have to always look for the best way to do our testing with tools, of course, given the amount of money we get. And if we get more money, we can do better testing. If we get less money, we do less testing. Always consider how you can do the best testing with the use of tools. Documentation. I have to go to the question and answers. I have a couple of minutes. Documentation. I used to make really thick test plans. If this would be in a room and I would see you, then I would probably ask. I would say proudly that my thickest test plan was 58 pages, and I would ask, is there anyone in the room who made a thicker test plan? Yeah, that was not a good thing. It was not wise to do it that way because nobody read it. it was no, and we have different tools we can use to make better and more easy documentation. Of course, the test automation suites we know, like PractiTest. But at the same time, you can use, for instance, mind maps for making a test design. I love mind maps for my test design because I can add all kind of information in different ways on different levels. And I can explain my test design on a high level and on a lower level. When we're doing testing, I can add information about the test runs. I can work with the traffic lights or smileys, whatever you like, and add a lot of visual information into it. So for a test design, we don't need Word or Excel, don't we? I never tried to make test plans in Word. My current client asked me to make a test case in Word because they had to for the organization who was looking if they were working in the right way. I can't remember the English word for it right now. So I had to make a test plan in Word. But I love making test plans in PowerPoint. And what I actually do is take my laptop, go to all the stakeholders I find important for this project I'm in, or for this system development team, Scrum team I'm in, and I explain them the approach for the CEO, for the CIO on a more higher level, for the users on a more detailed level. And then I know that everybody knows the choices and the approach we made, how we're going to test, who will be doing it, when they will do it. I used to send it in Word. They didn't read it. Now I go to them and I present it. That's much more efficient. So we don't need to make this thick documentation again. And my advice to all testers in all organizations, deinstall Word. Don't use Word. So this one. Word brings you in a situation in which you deliver so much information in a not very approachable way that people won't read it. That you don't reach your goal, sharing your thoughts and ideas and approaches. So to recap, modern testing is goal-oriented, is flexible and is fast. We are aware of the goals that the organization has with testing. Yes, we do some checking sometimes. Sometimes we do risk-based testing. Maybe you should consider to do value-based testing more often. Some organizations do it and you deliver really extra value. Maybe a combination, 2 out of 3. We're talking about flexibility. We're talking about different ways of testing and different approaches in different situations. And you have to adapt to the situation and depending on the situation, choose another way of testing. And when it comes to fast, we're talking about test automation and documentation. We haven't spoken about shift left, shift right. I have a limited amount of time, but that can also add to fast testing. And here something goes wrong. In the center, there should come a person right now. In modern testing, the tester is in the center of it all. So in the middle of this picture. And the modern tester knows how to do goal-oriented testing, knows how to which way of testing fits their situation best, and is fast, know their tools, have their tools, and know different ways of documenting stuff. Which brings me, and we should be here in 3 minutes. Well, then I'm 3 minutes too early for questions and answers.
You're fine. You're perfect. Thank you very much. That was very informative. I loved how it was structured because I think it was very easy to follow and yet very, very insightful. And and yes, okay, we already have a little. It's not really okay. Someone wrote a question in the chat. So we'll start with that. Okay.
Okay.
And it's funny that she wrote this because this also reminded me of a different guest who had who talked about mind maps and when she was building test scenarios. So anyway, this question is, in mind maps, we can consider different factors, but that would result in large number of combinations, which is not possible to be covered. How can this be managed?
Yeah, if your test cases are really complex, which I think this is the situation, then the test case, the details of the test case itself, mind maps do not really support the documentation of the details of the test scripts in this case. In that case, I would consider putting the test case in another tool or somewhere else. But the overview of the total test could be in a mind map. If you have this big bucket of all these test cases, you need to have an overview in some way. And for me, then mind maps work pretty well. But I see the situation sometimes that you have your mind map and somewhere else a bucket of test cases. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. A small plug here. I think PractiTest, we use filters, for instance, to really sort of like combine that whole aspect of managing like enormous amounts of that test bucket. Okay, next question. Sorry for the plug. Okay, I'm pretty new to testing and haven't done any course or whatsoever. What, in your opinion, are the first 3 things to do to become a professional tester? We hear this kind of question a lot.
Yeah, I love this question. I think this person is really motivated to become a real good tester. So thank you. I would always do the ISTQB courses and certificates because it has value, but you need to be aware that it's really most checking, a little bit of risk-based testing and scripted testing without automation. So a basis in ISTQB is great, but then do something like exploratory testing. You can hire me for it, or rapid software testing, or something like that. So a really different view from the ISTQB, because there's nothing wrong with ISTQB, but it's not the complete story. The third thing I would always do, especially in 2021, learn your tools. There are a lot of tools, PractiTest among them, and you can download a trial version, or you can watch different YouTube videos how tools work and start applying tools, because in modern day testing you cannot do without tools. So I would say ISTQB for scripted testing, exploratory testing or rapid software testing, and then tools. That would be my top 3.
Okay. One more question here. It's a bit lengthy. Here we go. In my opinion, quality should always be one of the most important aspects of testing. I agree. It is not one of the 3 aspects of modern testing you mentioned. Don't you think quality is important?
Yeah, we did discuss this, and we wanted to have a top 3 of characteristics, and quality was number 4. The reason why quality was not on it is that it's different for different organizations. Yes, when I have been working for this organization who makes MRI scanners, and I've been in an MRI scanner, and their quality above all. But the level of quality of the trading app for cars was different. So the level of quality for this organization, for this app, for this system was much lower. So it's very, we don't have to reach quality all the time in every situation. It is very context driven if quality is important or not. And somehow most testers, you said it yourself, Marjan, I don't want to catch you on your word, but you said, yeah, it's very important. Is it always? Is it in that situation? The project I'm in right now, we really have to be into production by July because the law is changing and we have to be able to do that. So in some parts of the system, the quality will not be that high. We don't have enough time to reach quality. Time is sometimes more important.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's a difficult one. Yeah, yeah.
Priorities. Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth sent a question. I just want to make sure. Oh, I see. Okay, there are more in the Q&A and some put in the chat. So I'll bounce between the two. You don't mention metrics, but it is always something that is brought up around measuring quality. We'll just connect it to the question. How do you utilize metrics in modern testing, if at all?
I'm very happy with the last thing. I'm a metric hooligan or something like that. I've seen so often that meeting the metric is more important than the goal of the project. That you always meet the metric because you are going to hunt to meet the metric instead of what is the most important thing and is it good enough for ourselves. So yes, you could say I'm against metrics most of the time. It's the goal of the organization. It's the goal of the project, of the system, of the team, which should lead us and not some metrics. But I know that some people don't agree with me on this one. So I'm pretty extreme on this one. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, we have a couple more questions here. I like this one. What are the parameters that tell you when to stop testing? Since you said it was something that could be unlimited.
I love you people in Israel.
It's not, I want to specify, these people are not necessarily from Israel at all. This is a worldwide webinar, Jan.
That's true.
I'm from Israel, but everybody here is from all over.
Yeah, that's true. It's when to stop testing. I try to let the product owner or the product manager or the client decide on that one. When he asks, can you stop testing? I'll say, oh, I can stop right now. I can tell you I've tested only 20% of the application and we have 10 major defects open. Mm-hmm. So I didn't test 80% of the application, but I can stop right now. No, I want you to test 100%. Okay, but that will take me 3 months. That's more than you need. So let's have a good discussion. What are the most important things you want to have tested? I test it, I report about it, and the top one, the top two, so let's say the top 50% of the priorities. If you want to have that tested, I start testing, but we're not talking about time. We are talking about what is important. You know, what information do you need to have? And then we're ready when we are. Because I cannot tell you when we are ready, because when I do testing doesn't take much time. If let's suppose that's the easy situation. We're doing scripted testing and only checking. I got my test cases ready, and test case 1, test case 2, test case 3. That goes really fast. But then we come to test case 4, and we find a defect. So we retest it. We make a bug report, which takes a lot of time. The developer always says to me, this is not a bug, it's a feature, or it works on my machine, or this is according to design. There's no design, by the way, but he says it's according to design. That takes a lot of time. So I don't know how much time testing will take. Let's have a discussion, what you want to have tested, and then I'll report about it. Sometimes this doesn't work.
Okay.
But always try it.
Okay, wait, I had one more question here. Oh, someone asked a small question. Did you really deinstall Word?
No, I didn't. I didn't do what I advised you to do. No, but every time I open Word, I'm asking myself, is this the best way to share information? And
Okay.
no, I really need Word for different things. But I try to use Word as little as possible. And if someone asks me to make a document, ask them, can I make it in another form? Because it takes an awful lot of time to make it. It takes an awful lot of time to read it. And maybe it's better if I explain it on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's not document. I take a picture. So I always try not to use it, but I didn't deinstall Word. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take one more question. Okay, this one is a bit more specific. Example, someone wrote, if our application grows and grows, but we want to keep our automation test suite only 1 hour, how would you approach that?
Yeah. You have different ways of automating a test set. And for instance, if you want to keep it to 1 hour, don't use record and playback. Don't use UI-based test automation. Try to do API-based test automation or program your test cases in a kind of behavior-driven development, BDD, style of testing, or use Selenium. So more the technical way of test automation. That makes test automation much, much faster. UI-based test automation is very slow, fault prone. It gives some information you can't get from programmed test cases. So you have to do it, but do it as little as possible if you want to have fast test automation.
Okay. You have time for one more? Last question? Yeah. Okay. Someone wrote, we have to trace our test cases back to predefined requirements. Do you have a recommended way to do that if you're not using scripted testing? I know I have my answer, but it's biased.
Yeah, but probably my answer will be partly the same. There are some great tools for that. And if you really want to trace back and forwards, we have tested this test case in this version of the system, in this test case in this version, and in this version it was red and then was green. Then you really need to have administrative test tools like PractiTest, or there are different, and they're all good. Mm-hmm. I stopped using Excel on this one. It gets too big. So then you really have to use tools. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's the same answer you would give?
Yes. I mean, I would have, yes. I mean, that's what we see this. I mean, we know it's a need. So we've, accommodated PractiTest to combine all testing, exploratory, scripted, automated, and have it all, presented in one place and linked to requirements. But you can check that out on our website. I don't want to keep people too much, or yourself. And thank you very much. Let me just see if I missed, because I know there were a few more questions here. Okay, I think we covered most of the questions. Yep. And we will, I don't know if you can actually see the Q&A. Can you see the Q&A on
your? I think so. Yeah, I can see them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We answered most of them. Some of those questions were a bit more specific. So if you want to answer them as well, you can. And I want to thank everybody, and you, of course, for attending.
One last minute.
Yes. Okay. Sure. Yes, you have.
I hope you can see this, because I promised you also to talk about flying goldfish. I started in testing about 25 years ago, and then the world was really old school, only checking, only scripted testing, no automation. I left testing to do business analysis and other things, and then I came back to testing, and I found out that it became so much more, so much enriched, so much more things, ways of testing. I do bug house, I do exploratory testing, tooling. So yes, I was this goldfish, and I jumped into the other bowl. If you're thinking, hey, I heard some things which are new to me, then I would invite you to come into the big fish bowl and learn some new things. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jan-Jaap. And there's your details. This was recorded, so you guys will be getting a recording, a recap of this session for you who attended, and also those who couldn't manage to make it. And thank you very much. Have a good day, a good morning, a good night, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you on our next guest webinar. I'm talking, of course, to the people who attended. We have more coming up. We have an online test conference coming up in May as well. So a lot of good things coming. And stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Marjan, and all
Thank
the
you very
best.
much. All the best to everyone. Bye.
Bye.